Welcome to Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. Our first Reddit post is from Dashend. I was working at a corporate sports bar at the time. Manufacture paperwork to fire me. Enjoy your liquor license audit. Barely over minimum wage, no insurance, no raises, no future. New store management came in, and it was clear that they were cleaning house firing all of the old staff to hire their people. Somewhat standard labor laws in my area allow firing for almost any reason. I had been down that road before. I needed a paycheck until I found a new job, so I played by their new rules. I did every stupid thing they said. I saw other more dedicated people fall by the wayside. Eventually, management needed a corporate policy violation to fire me. Finally, one day they changed the time clock an hour ahead and fired me for being 1 hour late to work. Okay, fair play, 100 legal anyways. They paid for the total number of hours worked. They were just fabricating the lateness for company policy. Revenge begins after finding that they were fighting my unemployment claim. I filed a formal complaint with the liquor bureau in my state. Their clock said that I was an hour late, therefore their official paperwork said that they were selling alcohol an hour after last call. I quickly got corporate attention. Hundreds per violation, plus automatic license suspension after X violations, and every bar transaction for that hour was a possible violation. Cashier's check, not standard payroll. My last check was double-checked for hours accuracy and overnighted to my front door. Corporate still gives me a stellar job reference to this day. The GM was replaced 2 months after I left, and they had repeated staffing problems trying to fill my shoes. I eventually signed a form saying that they were not selling alcohol after hours, and they would stop filing frivolous appeals against my unemployment benefits. Looking at the comments, I was unclear about my goals and intentions of the revenge. TL Drive Company changes time clock ahead to fire me for being 1 hour late. I report them to the Liquor Bureau for selling alcohol 1 hour after last call. My goal was simply to get my unemployment paid for, and to turn the screws if they failed to do so. For clarity's sake, this was not daylight savings time, but it was the early 2000s when virtually all computer systems did not play nicely with each other. For example, for daylight savings time, each location would route in prompt at least and change the store's server clocks ahead or behind 1 hour before the business day began. Or every system from payroll to card processing shat themselves, and corporate hated them for a while. They could not change the clocks midday, they could only change it before the workday, and could not alter the clocks again until close of business. Legally, no violation actually occurred. The liquor law specifically stated that the office clock in the state main office would be considered the official clock. They also did not pay me any extra money. They only overnighted my final check to me instead of waiting 2 weeks, and stopped filing appeals to my already approved unemployment benefits because I told the regional manager they were putting me in a tight spot financially. I told the clerk at the liquor office the same story, and she still asked me to file a complaint so they could officially verify the story. They also got my contact info, but never called or wrote me. This comment is from Stereotypical Idiot. A regional boss wanted that signed form not for legal reasons or license compliance, but for internal company reasons. Upper management wanted heads to roll if anything actually risked their liquor license. But since the GM just chose a DUMBASSED way to try to validate my termination, I took my unemployment benefits and considered the matter closed. Fight. Time clocks with time clocks. This comment is from Mandaches. Finally, one day they changed the time clock an hour ahead and fired me for being 1 hour late to work. Okay, fair play, 100 legal anyways. They paid for the total number of hours worked. They were just fabricating the lateness for company policy. I am surprised that was legal, honestly. Well played. This comment is from Dashend. That's the beauty of an employment at will state. The company can fire you for almost any reason, except for race, gender, sexuality, etc. They cannot fire you for having black skin, but they can fire you for using black slang. They cannot legally fire you for being a woman, but they can fire you because they find you to be an unattractive woman. The devil is in the details. When I have the details on my side, I will happily rake the devil himself over the coals. Now, a word from today's sponsor. Surfshark is an all-around VPN solution that can do everything from torrenting as well as streaming to browsing the dark web. Surfshark is one of the very best all-round VPN, terrific for Netflix, torrenting, confidential browsing, as well as staying safe on public Wi-Fi. Check out Surfshark today, link is in the description. Now back to the video. Our next Reddit post is from Thunk. Greedy grabbers get exactly what they take. Reposted from elsewhere. Sweet older lady in our church was a retired nurse. Never married, no kids. She had a heart attack, and while she was in the hospital, her niece and nephew thought she was dying. They came and took her stuff. Her apartment was small, but she had some very nice crystal and silver, and some lovely antique furniture. When she came home, she had no dishes and almost no furniture. Niece and nephew denied it, but the neighbors had seen them carting everything away. Several years later, she passed away. Her most recent will, dated after her heart attack, left $1 each to her niece and nephew. Everything else went to the church. Her estate was $9 million. This comment is from Chicky Parm Parm. Big Sackville Baggins Energy. This comment is from Philite1248. Our family had less crime, but just as much drama. My grandmother labeled every gift she was ever given and said to her oldest son, her executor, that all of them should go back to the giver as a memento of their relationship. So lots of nice things, and a lot of childhood handmade items that were worthless but precious too got returned immediately. My mom, this was her mother, had 10 brothers and sisters. This was 1975, and they were all still alive and spry. My uncle got frustrated by the bickering and infighting over certain items, so he told his siblings there would be an auction and they could bid on my grandmother's stuff. Pissed everyone off, since it was public and strangers could bid too, but it was fair and they all went along. Some feelings got hurt at that auction though, as my aunts fought over certain items they desperately wanted. My mom only wanted my grandmother's gas stove of all things because she felt it worked better than hers. It wasn't ancient, but it was certainly vintage, but she had me and my brother immediately install it in her kitchen, and she was like a kid at Christmas. This comment is from a General Decharge. You know exactly who I am, Lobelia Sackville Baggins. Our next Reddit post is from Actually Apollodin. I unleashed the monster of bureaucracy upon my neighbor and watched it destroy him. The setup. This is a story of how patience is key and how letting someone else get revenge for you is by far easier than doing it yourself. I live in one of those doubled-up houses where they build 2 houses adjacent to each other with mirrored layout. For years, the house next to me belonged to a nice old lady who you never really noticed or had any trouble with. When she died and the house was resold, the troubles began. Jack owns a sizable construction business, does some real estate on the side. The target is someone who I will refer to as Jack Sparrow for reasons that will become clear later. He buys the house and rents it to a bunch of foreign construction workers that work for his business. Not exactly on the up and up. I say foreign because it is relevant to the story. There are rumors Jack is doing some shady stuff to have these work for him dirt cheap, possibly unreported labor as well. Anyways, he stuffs 46 of these in said house for them to live while they work here. Now, I do not have anything against foreign construction workers, but these guys living next door have 2 traits that are very problematic. They are extremely loud, and they do not give a fuck about anyone else. Seriously, I don't know how or when they sleep. We are talking non-stop music and partying starting Thursday evening throughout the entire weekend until they leave at 5 a.m. Monday morning to go to work. We are talking I'm wearing headphones, but still cannot hear my own sound over their music loud, since it would appear that they've designated the living room adjacent to the shared wall as the party room where the fun happens. At first, I do the neighborly thing and just suck it up thinking it's just one party, just one weekend. I'm met with a half-earthed "so sorry, we'll fix," except nothing changes. After the third one in a row, I go over to ask them to turn it down, since night disturbance. It's technically illegal to blast music this loud horrible on the street and across the street by my other neighbors, who have also complained. I go over several more times, each time angrier, each time met with "but it's not loud. If I can hear your music in my own house, over my own television and music, I would say that it is in fact too loud." Basically, Jack told me to get fucked. I contact Jack, since he is their landlord, and explain the situation, after which I'm met with an abrupt "sorry, not my fucking problem." So I involve police and call them every time things get out of hand. After about a dozen calls, sometimes even twice in the same night, it is clear that even regular police interference doesn't help the situation. I should mention that I am a lawyer, so I know what the next legal steps are. I also know that other than a token paper from a judge saying their music is too loud, I'm not really going to get anything. I'm deadlocked with my only further option being pretty useless and a waste of time. Things would like they already sometimes had become a cat and mouse game where they would blast their music extremely loud to piss me off or to wake me up. At this point, I'm biding my time and just waiting till something changes. I'm not saying that I condone people who bludgeon their neighbor to death with a rusty pipe. The mistake. Suddenly, I see through my garden window that a wall is being partially torn down. One day I'm at home and I notice quite a lot of ruckus next door, more so than usual. You see, sometime over the years the neighbors had built a small adjacent side building adjoining the main house. It was right on the border between us, and when the gardens were being refenced, the wall was used as a divider to save on fencing. Said wall was now in the process of having its top part ripped off by a crane. I was not informed of any of this, which, while not technically needed, would have been the nice thing to do. Being a lawyer, and specifically a construction permit lawyer, I know two things. I go take a walk so I can take a look at what we're doing and see that they've torn down the entire side building. The remaining wall between our gardens is the only part that has been kept intact, and even then, not the top part. Shit like this is not allowed without a pre-approved permit from the city. There is no way in hell they have said permit, as I would have seen the application for it. I regularly have to check the online public accessible by everyone application to see what permits are being applied for my job. This is it. The moment I have been waiting for, the situation has changed, and the time has come to exact revenge. A quick email sent to the municipal authorities lets me do my civic duty of reporting a potential crime, the fact that someone is building or demolishing shit without a permit. Since this is a simple report, no response happens, since I'm not an official victim or anything yet. Since no further construction happens for a few days and everything was removed, I assume that was that, and they would only tear down the side structure since it was starting to fall apart due to age. Neighbors have moved all their stuff that was in said building onto their lawn and haphazardly covered it with a tarp. The next week, more construction materials are being delivered, and construction starts. I send a new email to City Services with new pictures saying that apparently there is more planned, and that I hope they undertake the appropriate action. Instant response less than an hour later. They'd called Jack after the first time to inform him that what he was doing required a permit, and he had assured them that he didn't know that BS. He's in construction, of course he knows, and that he would stop construction and request a permit. They called him again after my email, reprimanded him for not following his earlier promise, and he said again he would shut it down. I happened to be working from home that day and had to stop myself from waving to the construction crew as they left. Later that day, I get an angry phone from Jack, who accuses me of reporting him and that I would be sorry he would come after me for damages for his delays. I respectfully inform him that even if I reported him, reports are in my name, but not published and anonymized in later files. I won't have done anything wrong, because from the looks of it he didn't have a permit and should have known that before he started working illegally without one. I end the call before I start to sound too happy with things. Jack has at this point no idea what I have initiated with this. He is Jack Sparrow, and I have just rung the bell that awakens the kraken that will destroy him. He just doesn't know it yet. The kraken. You see, there is a good reason why most people consult an expert and/or a lawyer when they want to apply for a permit. The rules involved are so convoluted and needlessly complex that navigating them as a non-professional is extremely hard and time-consuming, and a single mistake can torpedo your entire case, forcing you to do it all over. I have killed entire projects and have seen clients' projects killed by pointing out that on page 127, section 350 ONI, something was left blank that should have been answered. So much so that they shared the costs of it. I did some digging and found out that the previous owners of the houses had actually consulted each other about the side building and agreed on making the wall part of the divider between their gardens. And the ownership. That wall that he destroyed, part of it was also my wall, which of course means I'm entitled to damages, but that is not the important part. The important part is that he needs my permission to do anything to that wall. Noticed that they were planning to do some stuff to said wall that I own 50. So when he applied for a permit a few weeks later, added bonus, rowdy neighbors, stuff is still out in the open, covered by just a tarp, since they expected this to be a quick smash and replace job that would take a few weeks at most. I went to city center and looked at the application. So I filed a complaint following proper procedure about the permit, namely that even if granted, it could never be executed, since Jack needed permission from me in regards to the wall, and he didn't have it, nor was I intending to grant it. This should kill his permit, since permits cannot be granted if you know in advance they cannot be realized. No sense granting a permit to build a certain kind of house when you know they're never actually going to build it. So despite a 100 correct legal objection that should have killed his permit, it went through. Now, Jack was a bit of a smooth talker, and as a construction entrepreneur, had his connections, and permits are a political decision here just as much as a legal one. He actually called me about it to gloat a little. No worry, one can appeal a permit. The only requirement is that you pay a €100 fee, which I gladly paid. They terminate his permit without any hesitation on the aforementioned legal grounds. The appeal instance is a subnational instance and does not care one bit about Jack's political ties or the half-hearted bullshit that the city officials wrote to justify granting the permit in spite of the concerns I raised. Jack sees his permit blocked until he fixes the issue, which he can't, because I'm not really inclined to agree with his plans for our wall, you see. At this point, going through 2 lengthy procedures, it has been over 7 months. The neighbors have had an unfinished construction project in their yard the entire time, forced to store their stuff elsewhere, something that was always supposed to be a temporary thing for a few weeks while we build turned into something that was taking months. But wait, there's more. The above was the administrative part of the matter, him getting the permit. Now, doing construction work without a permit is also a criminal offense. And of course, my report got passed around to the appropriate instances. So now Jack was also the subject of a criminal procedure for construction offense. Not only did he risk fines and jail time, he was a construction business and used his own construction business for the work he did on the property. So his company was also on the hook, and one of the sentences that can be given in these types of crimes is to be prohibited to do construction or construction-related activity as a business, either permanently or temporarily. Not only was he personally on the line, his entire business was as well. During this debacle, Jack tried to sell the property. This didn't really go too well because of a few reasons. 1. The property was inflicted with an illegal situation, made even worse by the fact that he applied for said permit and had it denied. Secondly, Jack never intended to sell the property in its current state, which tends to kill the property value quite a bit, since nobody wants to buy something that they'll have to spend time and money on to make legal again by either rebuilding the torn-down building or getting a regularization permit for it. What he, as I now know, has done in the past is buy cheap old houses like the one next to me. He puts some of his crew in it, who can't complain about the subpar accommodation. However, due to his construction crime and the accompanying status for the property, step 2 was not an option. They thrash the place because they don't care, and he lets them. He couldn't renovate it the way it needed to be. Small renovations would not be enough, because covering the crime was always a requirement in any permit he would request for the building, and because of me, he can't cover it. Couldn't sell it either because the place was trashed, and any developer looking at it would dip out when they realized there was a construction issue and a vocal neighbor who would oppose anything big that they would try to do there. Lost of easier properties to develop than that one. In conclusion, anyway, that is where we are today. Jack is staring down the barrel of a criminal court procedure that is about to happen, where he is risking his business and livelihood. His existing projects also gather special attention from city services now. He cannot really sell the property unless he cuts a massive loss. He cannot develop it or sell to a developer because all development plans involve the adjoining wall, which he cannot use in big ways unless he gets my permission. The rowdy neighbors are stuck living in a smaller house than what they had, in a place they trashed but that cannot really be renovated or fixed in the major way that it needs. They have quieted down a lot, possibly because Jack blames them for his current situation, which isn't wrong, I suppose. I have awakened the kraken and set it off on Jack Sparrow, and it utterly ruined him. And the best part is that I had due to very little to do it. All I really did was nudge the abomination that is municipal bureaucracy and point it in his direction, and they did the rest. But he didn't, so for now we'll just have to imagine that he did. This comment is from Dongerzero. I could tell you that he called me to complain and even beg about letting him use the wall the way he needs it to, so that he can get on with his business and fix the issues and use them to show his good faith in court in the criminal procedure, that he was losing money and customers over this and was in danger of losing his entire business, and that I then smugly replied with not my fuck. Well, the better resolution would be for you to purchase the property at a very, very reduced cost. Leaving him, Jack. Shit. This comment is from Compat Cop. You have an absolutely amazing opportunity at hand here now, Op. You should strike that iron while it's hot and make a tidy profit in the process as well. This comment is from Wethavstup. I cannot wait to find out how that court proceeding goes. But really, Your Honor, I didn't know I'd need a permit, despite doing this every single day. Surely you can let this slide, right? If you know your neighbors are already pissed off, at least be subtle about your illegal activities when under their noses. Don't fuel the damn fire. Good luck, Op. Hope he gets what's coming to him and you get some peace again. That was Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. If you like this content, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you are notified of new uploads. We upload new videos every day. Also subscribe to our Patreon, as that will help us a lot. See you next time.